Hi friends, it's Jake here, and today I've got a Sanrenmu to take a look at with you. This is the 7045, a hand filler, good gripper, multi-tooler, thing cutter, shut up Jaker. This is a knife that I've been carrying for quite a while, and it EDCs very, very well. We've got 8CR13 MOV Chinese steel that is 2.5 millimeters thick, and that is 0.1 inches. So 2.5 millimeters thick, 0.1 inches. We've got a nice long blade. You're looking at just about 3 inches. It's 2.78 inches if you measure from that point to the tip, and you measure along the outside and into this recurve a bit. If they measure from the furthest point out on the plastic handle to the tip, you're easily going to make it, because that's like just over 2.75 inches. Open, the whole thing is 6 3/8 inches, which is about 16.2 centimeters. The handle itself is 3 5/8 inches, which is 9.3 centimeters. The weight of the knife is nice and light. We've got 3.2 ounces, 32 ounces. Hey, you want one of these knives? It's 2 pounds. 3.2 ounces, which is 91 grams. I've got a large size hand, and it just hides in my hand, and fits with a good grip. I think a guy with an extra large hand would still find a lot of good use out of this knife, largely because it's got a pretty good sort of golf ball texture, but it's a little more aggressive than a golf ball. And that texture doesn't feel aggressive in the sense of giving you hot spots unless you squeeze it extremely tight. But during my use, my testing, it didn't feel hot really at all. I enjoyed it. It was a great knife to carry, is a great knife to carry. I think I'm going to be carrying this guy as a regular EDC quite often. Hollow grind, a swedge, an unsharpened swedge. It's got a flat edge running along it. Drop point, great big fat belly that just won't stop slicing. This guy wants to cut, and it wants to cut everything in its way as long as you slice it. It's not the greatest stabber, but yeah, you can penetrate if you just give it a little bit of a push. And it's easy to give it a bit of a push. You've got good jimping all around. You've got a little bit of jimping here on the liner lock, a little bit of jimping back here as well, so that when you're grabbing it, you're not going to let go, including all this texture back here. It's just an awful lot. This knife is very good in the hand with almost any grip that you can imagine. And I've tried it with just about every grip, and it's very comfortable, except for I don't particularly like this glass breaker on here. If you like glass breakers, this one's done very, very well. The one con that I want to mention to you about the blade is the thumb studs. The thumb studs work really well, and when the knife is closed, they're in the perfect spot for very easy deployment of the blade, but they're a little bit too far down the blade for my liking. I wish it was further back for when you're actually using the knife to slice. Because when you're slicing through something, I don't like it if whatever I'm slicing gets caught up on the thumb stud. I want it to pass right past. So the further back it is, the better. They had lots of room to move it back. Like right here, it has to clear the end of the handle right there. There's lots of room. They could have moved it back just a little bit and it would still clear that. And if it was back a little bit, I'd still be able to deploy that knife really, really well using that thumb stud. I'm totally convinced of it because I have other knives that are closer and further up. It might actually work even better because right now I have to pull my thumb further back. If I didn't have to pull my thumb quite that far back, it'd be more comfortable. It's not uncomfortable now. It's the difference between good and better. So this is good, but they could have made it better. The jimping in here is done really well. It's not too much. Whoa, hit my camera, my whole tripod system. The jimping's done really well. It's not too aggressive, and yet it's aggressive enough to give you some extra good purchase on there. We've also got I was talking about jimping before when I mentioned on this side, on this choil for the liner lock, the jimping there, and this jimping here. And I forgot to mention there's some jimping back here. When the blade is deployed is the only time that jimping comes into play. And yes, you do want it then, because I shouldn't do it that way. When you've got those tools deployed, you might be holding the knife like this to at least the ripper. And you've got a little extra texture with your thumb because of that jimping when you're doing that kind of ripping motion. Or when you've got the can opener out and you're wrapping your hand around it, your index finger might be right there while you're using it. I changed the can opener. I've got another video. I'm not sure if I'm going to let it out before this one or after this one, but within the next week or so, several days maybe, there's a video on how I changed the edge right here on this can opener to make it much more useful. And, so look for that. The can opener works quite well. You could use it, as a cap lifter as well. But now that I've sharpened it as a can opener, it's not, it might cut into the cap just a little bit. But I preferred having something to work as a can opener more so than a bottle cap lifter, because, there's so many different ways to take a bottle cap off, but there's not that many ways to open a can. And there's a whole lot of tools around to open a cap off a bottle, but not that many tools around to open a can. That's what I wanted to say. Okay, what else did I want to cover? Let's finish covering these tools. I wish there was a stronger detent on these. There's an okay detent on them, but when you're using the can opener, I found quite often I would get into the can, and then when I would lift up, it would start to undo. The blade would start to close a little bit. So I wish that detent was stronger there. It's not so important on the seam ripper because you're always pulling it into place while you're using it. That covers all of that stuff. The handle's nice and thick from spine to belly, and it's got lots of good grips in there. Your main finger, then you got another choil there, and then room for your two fingers at the back. Good knife. I'm really liking and enjoying this. The pocket clip is only tipped down, and that has to do with these extra tools that they've put on the back and how those are mounted in place. I think they still could have made it work with the pocket clip being tip up, but they chose not to. It's a very deep carry. Imagine that's your the cardboard is your pocket flap. Once it's in your pocket, you're seeing that clip a little bit and a tiny bit of knife up there. So very good carry that way. This knife comes in two different ways. You can get it this way, which is the 745 LUC-PH-T4. Nice long name. You can get it in a black coated blade, which is the 745 LUI-PH-T4. And I've got links for both of them in the description below for GearBest. That's about all there is to say about this knife. Let's do some cut tests. I've got some banding here from some packaging that we got this Christmas season. And this is a strong plastic, and it just slides through that no problem. This edge, Sanrenmu knows how to do an edge, and especially a hollow grind edge on their 8CR14. And it cuts, that way as well with a little bit of pressure, and it just, zips through however you want to use that to cut. Cardboard, it slices through that very, very well. No problems at all. You've got paper, and just hear that nice clean cut. And that's a push cut cutting across the exact same part of the blade, nice and slowly. A slow push cut is what really shows you if a knife is sharp or not. Anybody can go like that. And, you can cut really quickly and make things look dramatic, but really you're not showing how good the edge is unless you do a nice slow cut. The slow cuts really are where it's at to show how sharp an edge is. I want to tell you as I do on all of my videos, because I do it the same way all the time, I have not touched this edge since I bought it. That's how I do my testing for knife reviews. I take the factory edge, I do all my testing with the factory edge, if at all possible, and then I do my video with the same factory edge, and not having done any stropping, no honing, nothing to make the knife function any better than it did before. And it just keeps cutting. Now, that was mostly on the same spot, a little bit closer to the tip there, same thing. Any spot on this knife that I choose to use, except for the very close to the tip, I don't think they sharpened it at the factory very well at the tip, because even my early testing, it was a little more difficult to get a lot of good cuts right off the tip. So you can see there's a little bit more tearing in that cut. But, you know, all the way down to the bottom of this recurve, that's especially sharp in that recurve. And it just held its edge there. And at the bottom of that recurve there, it just held its edge, you know, for the entire time that I've had this knife. Great knife. Tip down, not too heavy, a little bit chunky, but that makes it, in terms of the thickness here, I didn't tell you how thick that was, did I? Okay, so 0.628 is the thickest spot I could find. That's 16 millimeters. So 0.6 of an inch, 16 millimeters, yeah, 1.6 centimeters thick. Good, nice knife. If you like this video, please click on like, please share with your friends. Please comment if any questions or anything that you have. And do I recommend this knife? For sure. Are there things that could be done better? Yes, and I mentioned those, especially, you know, the detent on there, and, you know, how dull this can opener was to start with. What else did I say was negative? Well, it wasn't the cutting edge. It cuts really fine. This is a good knife. If you want to know what else I thought was not that great, obviously it wasn't so significant, go back and watch the video again. And remember, always cut towards your chum and not your thumb.